Hello, everyone, and welcome to session three of Interview Security Summit. Throughout today, we explored the escalating threat of interview fraud, which is deepfakes, impersonation, identity manipulation, and the shifting landscape of hiring integrity. This session, the third session, now shifts the lens from understanding the problem to learning from our leaders who are already solving it real time. We are bringing in three individuals who are not only ahead of the curve, but are actually shaping how interview security will look like at enterprise scale. It's my absolute pleasure to introduce our panelists. First, we have Varun Gautam, Head of Talent Management and T8 Persistent System. Varun brings a deep combination of business, talent architecture, and delivery readiness expertise. Under his leadership, Persistent has earned recognition from Forbes, Newsweek, and Everest Group for the people practices. Varun has been driving high-scale, high-integrity hiring systems that blend capability with operational trust. Welcome, Varun.
Thank you, Sonu. Thank you.
Next, Next, we have Daniel Callahan, CEO of Veremark. Daniel has spent his career building trusted workspaces globally, from verification to compliance to credentialing at scale. His work spans multiple continents, helping enterprises ensure integrity across the talent lifestyle. Daniel has been at the forefront of bringing trust architecture into modern hiring systems. Welcome, Daniel. Pleasure to have you on board.
Welcome. Glad to be here. Thank you.
And finally, Vikas Singh Baghel from HCLTech, who leads digital sourcing, talent supply chain transformation, and global HR tech architecture. Vikas has a unique vantage point. He oversees one of the largest, most complex hiring operations in the world. He brings practical insight into what it takes to ensure trust, identity accuracy, and delivery alignment across thousands of interviews every month. Thank you all so much for being here. So I know throughout, to begin with, each of you lead an organization where delivery, trust, and compliance are absolutely non-negotiable. To start this session, what one question that I have for all of you is, when did interview security become a strategic priority, not just a hiring issue for your teams? I'll just go with the order that I see on my screen. So Varun, over to you first.
So it was always a priority, Sonu, with more complexity of operations and the way our business contracts are structured, where there are many liabilities associated to the business. It has always been of severe importance. So it was not that it just came recently. It has been catching up importance every day, every month, every quarter, every year. That's the way you look at it.
Really appreciate that perspective, Varun. Daniel, what's your thought?
I think the quality interviewing process, as Varun said, has always been, super important. And what we have started to see a major escalation across both our own internal hiring, but also more importantly, as a point of strategic relevance for our clients, is the growing increase in number of fake applicants and AI-aided profiles, shall we say, that have now really put it to the forefront of how you run those interviews. Whilst interviews have always been of great strategic importance, now the security element has become a table stakes to get right.
Absolutely. I think that's a starting point with the resume itself. So yeah, thanks for that perspective, Daniel. Vikas, what about you? What do you think?
Yeah, so as Varun and Daniel said, this has always been important. So it has its due importance in corporate setup. But I think earlier it was an isolation, right? Every now and then, 6 months, once in a 6 months, you'll end up finding some candidate who has done something unethical or trying to cheat the system. I think post-COVID and the onslaught of technology, democratization of AI, and proliferation of the tools, which has the disposal at the candidate end, it has become sort of pandemic, right? If you look at it, there is the surge of fraudulent cases which we are detecting, not at an individual company level, but at an industry level. I think it has become a problem which is getting discussed at boardrooms, in the customer conversations and whatnot. So um, you got to treat an interview like a security incident now. It was not the case earlier, right? It was just an interview, but now every interview is being treated like, okay, what has gone wrong? And whether it's interviewer, recruiter, technology, everybody has to come together and try and become a little more, put the preventive measures in place. While interview, authenticity has always been a has always been a priority, but from the other side of the table, we never faced this kind of issues. It was an isolation always. Now it has become, perhaps every case you got to double check to be sure of. So that's where we are.
Absolutely. In fact, some of the previous sessions with the stats that were being discussed, I think that's alarming, and totally resonate with that, because it's not a one organization problem. I think this we are seeing with the stats that is there, that it's widespread. It's quite across everywhere. So thanks for that opening thoughts. I think the second where we want to dwell in a little further is how leaders are already using AI to secure interviews. And because I'll start off with you on HCLTech runs one of the most complex global talent supply chain operations. So what AI-driven practices have you already implemented to secure interviews across scale? What's working and what's changing your workflow? Any insights on those?
See, so a couple of things. I think we've been a little more proactive in this approach, especially because the kind of scale we deal in, right? Every year we might, process around 500,000 candidate, right? In a good year, it's going to be, anywhere between 500,000 to million, right? Now, to manage that kind of scale, humanly, it is not possible. No matter how robust or rigorous process you have in place, unless you deploy a technology, it is very difficult to detect and prevent at that scale. So that's why, we started leveraging and, experimenting with some of you, with folks like you and others who have partnered with us to say, how do we solution it? And what we have looked at is that it should be an amalgamation of human in loop along with technology, right? Because it's not completely tech stack. There is an interviewer in place, and there are different change in hand happen during the course of an interview. So there's a recruiter, then there's a hiring manager, then there's an interviewer, then there's an onboarding team. So you got to do that, continuous authentication of candidate, which is going to be enabled by human and technology both, and ensure that the same candidate who came upstream the funnel is the same person who is joining us. So while we put up this technology, we did realize we got some handful cases whom we caught hold of, and we denied the onboarding for them, and we safeguard our interest and customer interest. And the idea was that you take an image of an individual when he comes and authenticate same individual at a different interval. So interview round one, interview round two, then the same person is getting authenticated by by onboarding team before the person joins. And so ensure that the person who was interviewed is the same person joining us. So that's how we were trying to do so. No? And see, no matter what you do, I think in another 12 months or the way the generative AI comes to the full fruition, it will be very difficult for human eye to detect whether it's genuine across my screen. The person who's speaking, is he speaking or there's some technology behind it? It is not humanly possible for you to detect. And therefore, the technology has to come up this side of the table, because other side of the table, candidate is also leveraging some of those very sophisticated technology to be able to take you for the task. So it's an evolution. I'm not saying we're there yet, but I think we have enough robust technology in place to course correct some of low hanging fruits. There are people who are very, very smart to leverage those technology, and they may still be seeping through. And there we do a lot of regular audit of the process to ensure that some of those cases which have seeped through this, technology plus human loop is getting detected and being taken care of.
Absolutely. Agree to that, because I think both technology and the human interaction goes hand in hand. While one can always try catching up to it, the human element definitely comes in. So yeah, totally agree to that. Varun, Persistent is known for innovating in delivery and talent architecture. Can you share how you are leveraging AI today to protect interview quality and ensure authenticity across the global teams that you're operating in?
Yeah, so it's fascinating to learn more about HCLTech talent supply chain practice, considering I was part of the same team a couple of years back. So thank you for the insights, because it's good to hear that. But yeah, so you are right. At Persistent, we see AI as a very, very critical enabler. It is an enabler to maintain all kind of interview integrity, and of course, candidate experience, which has to be consistent not only in one geography but across geographies. We at Persistent also operate in more than 20-25 countries. So, and everywhere there is a difference in which people approach, candidates approach, and we as an employer has to approach. So there are four key ways in which we structure this, where what we leverage on. First of all is of course candidate authenticity and governance. Number two is interview to onboarding continuity. Third is, of course, the risk, which I also touched upon. How do you avoid that risk, project or customer risk avoidance? And then, of course, the education part, which is on manager education, governance, all the panels, people who are involved in this evaluation. And of course, all these four pointers have a full-blown strategy. Like, let's pick one of them, right? For example, the risk avoidance, because it has impact on business. So by validating a candidate authenticity early in the process, we reduce the risk of mishires, and that thing, the same thing Vikas also touched upon, because it impacts everything. It impacts project deliverables, it impacts people experience, it impacts employee experience, and above all, client commitments. So somewhere, AI-driven insights have been able to flag those anomalies. Incidentally, we are so fresh coming out of an email exchange what we did, right, where you and your team helped us to figure out a candidate even yesterday, as recent as yesterday. So it is fascinating to see those outcomes, and which are helping us to proactively safeguarding our interest and our project and delivery outcomes. The other, while I named four, the other one which is equally important and critical is while we are talking of candidate and candidate authenticity, it is also to do with manager and panel education and governance, right? Where AI also enables to reduces the bias in the interviews. We have these technologies in place, we have these structured in place where we are able to train our managers to help interpret AI signals responsibly and maintaining that human judgment. This dual approach also ensures the fairness and accountability as at both sides. While we expect candidates to be fair and run an honest assessment when they are appearing for these interviews and assessment, as employers and aspirationally to be employers of choice, it is also equally it sits with us as well. So in short, I would say AI and all these interventions are not just a tool, right? It's part of our governance fabric at Persistent. It helps us scale globally while it protects the quality and the trust what we built across, whether it is my own employees, whether it is the candidate community, whether it is my customers.
Absolutely love that. And I love your Persistence logo with that AI right in the heart of it. I think that's really lovely. And the exchange that we had, I think, while it was a wow moment that we caught something, but it's also disturbing that even today, interviews are not safe. We have such malpractices that keep creeping in, and it's really terrible. But yeah, thanks for your insight, Varun. Daniel, you've been driving this whole thing yourself. So, from a global compliance and trust perspective, as per you, what are the most impactful AI-powered verification practices organizations are adopting today? What do you see from your lens?
So, so Veremark obviously is a global pre-employment screening and background checking company. We see the identity as just one component, obviously a fundamental and pivotal component to a candidate's overall integrity. And therefore, what we have seen, obviously, not only as Vikas has already talked about best practices in verifying that identity at a number of stages throughout the process and doing so, but pre-hire, obviously, using things like global adverse media checks and social media analytics to really ensure that you're hiring the right type of person that you want in your organization, from a cultural, from a psychological or environmental safety perspective for your co-workers. What we also find is that more of the best organizations are continuing that screening. So it's great to get them into the business, but you do not, you don't want them becoming a bad actor or swapping out for a bad actor when they have already got the role. So we're starting to see organizations, certainly where they're working remotely, do spontaneous photoshops again. So hey, here's a ping. are you in front of your camera? Let's just make sure it's you. It's a computer. It's a company computer, so therefore we can test it. Obviously, you've got more productivity monitoring tools or surveillance tools in a remote environment that are able to capture screen and the photo, so that, again, that it is Daniel behind your camera doing the relevant work, and obviously just rerunning a whole variety of integrity checks. And again, that can be done alongside things like more on the integrity side, but monitoring or reviewing the government tax offices or bank accounts for open banking APIs to also see if the people are engaged in multiple full-time employments. Because again, another thing that we are finding is that the same person is getting multiple jobs, and then obviously trying to do all of them, obviously to a diminished degree. But it's obviously taking a broader view of that person's integrity, and then continuing to do certain identity checks throughout and post-hire, as well as them being able to try and monitor their ongoing financial perhaps activity or salary inputs as well to ensure aligned with your company employment policy.
Interesting. So I think that's a very clear way, Daniel, to think about the different verification layers. I think, yeah. So thanks for bringing that. That's very insightful. I think heading on to the hard truths, what organizations get wrong. And this question remains to everybody, but from your personal experiences, I'm sure you've seen multiple things within your own organizations or with the others. So has organizations rushing to respond to this fraud crisis? What are the biggest misconceptions or mistakes you're seeing leaders make? Daniel, probably we'll start off with you, and then we'll go to Varun and then Vikas.
I think that it's a more on the softer side, right? The technical, the tools and so forth. Well, let me start again. I think there's two. I think one, underestimating the size of the problem is the biggest mistake that people are making. I think people really have to understand how prevalent this is now becoming, and if you want to protect the quality and integrity of your organization and those hires, then you do need to take action now. I think the second part is actually often just around the communication and explanation of why you are doing this and what is expected. Now, some people don't know they can use AI tools in an interview. Some people do. So again, making sure that the rules of engagement are very clear from the outset will help you and the candidates have the fairest chance of explaining it. And then if you are going to go into a more detailed and in-depth screening or identity verification type process, again, explain all the positives as to why you would do it and why your organization is therefore a better place to work, because you have protected and taken these steps to remove potential negative influences from the organization. And I think those are certainly on the the softer side of things, easily remedied, changed.
Agreed. I think some of my interactions with some of the other organizations, of course, Daniel, this is the first point that comes in, that we believe that no, this does not happen in XYZ organization. And then we have to tell them that, hey, this is something that we have seen from stats happening in much, much larger organizations. So it's very fortunate if that's not happened. But are you even measuring that, or are you even seeing that today? But yeah, we see that very well. I forgot if the order, but yeah, because I'll go over to you.
So Sunu, first of all, it's not an easy problem to solve. Okay, let's acknowledge the elephant in the room. All the big techs of the world, likes of the Google, right? You would have heard what Google CEO said. They are moving back to all in-person interviews. Imagine a company who's trying to do all AI and creating this most sophisticated tool which world is supposed to use and transform themselves. They are moving back to in-person interviews because they're not able to prevent that problem, right? So even in our case, for example, we are also insisting to say wherever it is possible, have an in-person conversation with a person. I know it's a detrimental to velocity and scale, but having said that, this is non-negotiable, right? Candidate authenticity and integrity is non-negotiable. So you need to come up with some of these hard calls at the maybe expense of a velocity and whatnot to ensure the quality, to ensure the authenticity. So that's what we are doing. It's a hybrid kind of model where we do one round of virtual, for second round, we insist the person comes for an in-person interview where somebody is verifying. before he's onboarding. So, if you ask me what the leader mistake, I don't think so. Leaders have acknowledged that this is a problem, because in certain cases now customer has been very demanding, right? To say that it is zero tolerance, and it's not a number game. Even if you end up finding one case, it has a ripple effect on your engagement and relationship with that customer, which you may have been holding for 20 years. So it is not about the numbers or volume, right? It is just about it has to be a foolproof process. And like I said, even the big ones are struggling to solve it. So therefore, you need to come up with some sort of model, a rigorous process, technology in place with human in loop. And like I think Varun was alluding to, say that if all hands on the deck, everybody has to know as a human what you need to be careful about when you're interacting with somebody, what are the things and checklists you should have with you to detect and prevent. So I think that's how we need to go about doing it. As far as the problem magnitude is concerned, I think there is an acknowledgement at a leadership level in most of the companies. Everybody's trying to wrap their head around to say how do we solve it, but there's no plug and play solution here. So it has to evolve, and then we hope that you guys build more robust technology, and at the same time we will try and put a little more rigorous process, which will give us more predictable outcome in this space.
Thanks, Vikas. Varun?
Yeah, so I think between Daniel and Vikas, they pretty much covered everything, right? But still, since the question come to me, I will rather stay on more optimistic side in terms of whether saying what enterprises are getting wrong. I would rather say, what they need to get right. So somewhere I think it is to have a right balance between uh, uh, some bit of manual and some bit of automated / AI approach. So that custom approach has to be developed. One of the biggest misconception I see in this area is that there is a very strong belief that fraud prevention can be fully automated without having any human oversight, right? So you need to bring in the agentic processes, as they are very powerful. They allow you to scale speed and hopefully eliminate. But overdoing them is also not the same thing, right? It's also a risky trend. So somewhere it has to be a custom approach which works both things in tangential. One of the things I keep hearing in my system from my talent lead is about humanization of AI. So somewhere the manual and the agentic processes have to come together. Humanization is non-negotiable, but there are a couple of common mistakes what many enterprises, many leaders do, which is over relying on manual interview judgment, fragmented hiring stacks, that means disconnected tools on blind spots, without integrated platforms, without integrated APIs. Fraud detection always becomes inconsistent across businesses, across geographies. Ignoring compliance exposure, which again goes back to the risk part of it. Uh, Treating security as an optional for a candidate experience is also not the best thing. Security and experience are not mutually exclusive, right? As I said, right, for us to position our being an employer of choice, candidate value trust is as much as important as the speed at which we want to evaluate. And then, of course, underestimating the project impacts of what I think Vikas alluded, even that one wrong hire, and Daniel also touched upon it. A single fraudulent hire can derail the entire project delivery, timelines, experience, outcome, client cost, confidence. So yeah, I would say those are the things what we should keep in mind. And we have seen documentation fraud during background checks. We have seen facial recognition frauds, overlapping voices during the interview and assessments. We have seen people using tools like GPT and others while doing the online assessments where you conduct tests. So some bit of it doing in person, what Vikas said, what let's say other big integrators are trying to do, big hyperscalers are trying to do. But yeah, some bit of AI help with governance, manager education, interviewer education, which remains equally critical. So technology should empower, not replace, and human accountability is equally critical.
Absolutely.
And one quick point, Sonu. So see, at some point, as this space is evolving, right, we will all of us have Copilot, all of us have all these technologies where we encourage our employees to leverage that to augment their competence, right? Same maybe for candidate, right? But so we need to draw the line somewhere. The problem is, as long as you're leveraging the technology to augment your, skill and ability, and then try and crack the interview is great. But if you're trying to impersonate, somebody else is appearing on your behalf is a problem. But as even in our hackathons today, some of the hackathons which we do for a tech hiring, we ask people to bring their laptop and they can use some of these chat GPTs of the world to solve that problem, because here the idea is that all what is at disposal, you leverage that and solve the problem, and as long as you can do that, you're welcome. The issue is that what is that ethical line, and that's where candidate also need to draw to say we're not averse that you leverage this technology, but don't leverage it to appear on somebody else's behalf. I think that is what we need to prevent and solve for.
That's an honest perspective, Vikas and Varun. I think we drive that over here. We want everybody to be very well versed with the new AI tools as such, but it's always how do you complement it, but not use it as a means to commit a fraud to something. So yeah, I think thanks a lot for those insights. Getting on, we are right at the end of 2025 and moving into 2026. If there was a blueprint creations that we had to do and dwelling some on those, Daniel, first question to you. If you had to design a secure interview process from zero today, starting with trust as a foundation, what would that blueprint look like?
I think it's a super exciting question. I mean, I'd certainly think without the plug that tools like Talview are very much at the forefront of this. I think that, as we've touched on, it would definitely have to involve a combination of both digital and real world. And I think hiring candidates, hiring experiences, again, obviously it's industry dependent, do really appreciate that physical connection as part of the process as well. And that is ultimately the essence, one of the key essences of trust is knowing that the relationship is reciprocally valued, and that that can be greatly accelerated by a physical component of it, and that can still be done en masse through assessment days or such as well, but with a slightly different tone of assessment day perhaps. So yeah, as a blueprint, I think it would involve continuous monitoring. It would certainly have multiple phases at the forefront of it being digital, so that you can weed down the funnel. And then it would end with a physical in-person component to it, and then be supplemented by post-hiring continuous monitoring, at least until there was a degree of testing. Again, bad actors often have short attention spans, so if you can do the continuous monitoring for the first 3 months or 6 months, because versus in perpetuity. And I think then that would give you a greater level from a security perspective of a better set of outcomes.
Yep. Thanks, Daniel. I think some of that from interactions with Vikas and Varun, I think some of these are already applied on their organizations as well. But the aspect that even after the onboarding, the point that you bring in that during your first 3 months or the 30, 60, 90 days, how does the candidate kind of come across? We do see some of these elements where right after the hiring, the L&D is also plugged in, and there also they continue doing that. So we do have that applied. So I think that we do see some organizations already doing that. So yeah, very insightful. Thanks for putting that, Daniel. One question to you. How do you see delivery operations and customer expectation shaping interview security architecture over the next a year to 18 months?
Yeah, so it's fascinating to see the transition. I've been in the fulfillment business for nearly 2 decades and a couple of more years, and the entire thing has transformed every 5, 7 years. What we are going through now, the way we interview, evaluate, engage with people is totally going to change. Gone are the days when there used to be a one interview, two interview. Most of the process what we run today, the first is an agentic interview. So that's going to become more and more prevalent across the industry. Fortunately, we are very early adopters, but others will follow, big, small. So that is definitely going to change. But otherwise, interview security is about to become a delivery safeguard, right? It is just not a fulfillment or a recruitment feature. A couple of big shifts will happen. There will always be more delivery pressures. Client won't tolerate any delays. Fraud prevention will be baked into project risk management. In geographies like India, the social fabric has changed. So that means the candidate interest level and the way they evaluate you is also changing. And they will equally look at the experiences what you bring in with this interview security architecture as we go along. Operational scale, manual checks would not cut it. They are in any case out. There is more and more automation, AI, Gen AI kicking in. So expect that integrated AI stack solutions for identity continuity, anomaly detections will kick in. Uh, as I already touched upon the candidate expectations, security must feel invisible yet strong. It should be frictionless. It should not challenge me on my identity, but at the same time should get me through. So experience with governance at the core would be the key thing. And of course, you need the best quality of candidates to deliver for your businesses. So I would say the bottom line is, security moves from reactive fraud checks to being very, very proactive, embedded architecture. And one liner would be, the fastest delivery wins, but only if it is most secure. Speed without unbreakable security is dead on arrival, right? So that would be the integrated approach, and what we should see in next couple of years. I think even much faster to change.
Interesting, Varun. And having worked with you and the Persistent team, I see you already delivering some of this, which you're saying is forward-looking. I see you're already much ahead of that in your current experience as well. So thanks a lot for sharing that. I think that will be a lot helpful for a lot of people who are attending this. Because for you, what technological shifts, AI integrations, automation will have the biggest impact on interview security by end of 2026?
Yeah, I think as we evolve, while some of these pointed solutions are available, I think they will start plugging into some of these statutory or compliance tools which governments have prepared. For example, Aadhaar, right? UID website it has your picture, it has your metadata about your date of birth, your address, and whatnot. UAN, it can give you the entire history of an individual, where all he has worked, what are the dates he has worked with those companies, so you can find some. So moonlighting, etc., has been prevented when the company started plugging into UN system, right, across India. So I think the ecosystem has to be built and developed where it is not only about the pointed solution which you build on top of LLM models, but you plug in with these systems which is already available with wealth of data about an individual, about his identity, background, etc. Clear process in US, for example, is another example equivalent to Aadhaar, where it can tell you this individual is he the one he claiming to be or not, and it can give you in seconds, right, result. So we are plugging into Aadhaar for India, we're plugging in Clear in US, we're looking for equivalent technology in Europe as well. So the idea is that do not just sit on what you're building, but go out and have your tenants plugging into these different statutory systems which is available in the respective country, and try and get that data, so that while you're ensuring that the individual who has come into the process, some of these background process, etc., can be authenticated real time with all this data digitally available. So I think that is what evolve, Sunu, as we go along. And some of these, once it comes into the fore, automatically it will start becoming a deterrent. Today, candidate may be leveraging some of these because he know that he can get away with it. As and when more and more people will start getting caught in this web, they will realize that there's no point attempting it, because there are those guardrails available with the company, and I will have loss of face or loss of credentials as a candidate. So therefore, I will not do that. And as we go along, I think we need to come up with a framework where some of these reasonable accommodation will be allowed, right? Where candidate can use some of these technology to be able to prepare better, come more prepared for the respective job interview. So all of that will evolve as a practice. And I think once this ecosystem is built, and some folks like you need to go and build this along with the different providers and create more robust solution rather than one pointed solution where I'm using LLM and trying to solve that problem, in my view, is what will give us more mileage in this space.
Makes sense, because so absolutely love it. So since you work across the globe, do you see this ecosystem setting in quickly, maybe in India, or do you see this faster in some of the other regions, or how do you see that?
Yeah, so as of now, there are those, players who operate in those respective geography. For example, in India, you have a couple of players who have already tied up with UID, UN, etc., and give you all those integrated report. Similarly, in US, you have a couple of players who do that. Clear is one of the examples who does this for America. Likewise, so there's no global solution as yet. People are still trying to solve in their own geographies, but the magnitude of the problem is also primarily, concentrated in Asia, or if I may say India, right, to start with. It is still not as bad in those countries as it is here. So as it, if it is the problem, the magnitude of the problem, if it goes to that scale, even in those countries, it will evolve. And I think all of us read that Wire report, right? What has happened in US about some North Korean impersonating as US citizen and taking jobs in all the IT services companies. So now the federal government has been involved in US, and there is going to be more robust, laws, etc., will come in that area. And there is a lot of audit and governance has been put forth. So that is why I was saying it is not about volume. It is even one case is it has a catastrophic impact on an organization and industry. So this has to be solved for sure. And I'm sure as we go along, some global players will emerge and try and solve this.
Great, great. Thanks, Vikas. So I know we're just towards the end of the session, so I'll wrap up with a quick, I call it as a rapid fire round, but in 30 seconds, and we can go in whichever sequence over this thing. What is it one thing that every TA or HR leader must implement in the next 100 days to improve interview security?
Let me take a jive first. So tech alone isn't enough, as I said, right? Humanization of AI, custom approach. So, and being intrinsic, I want to fix my house first. So train your managers to interpret AI signals, spot those red flags. So human judgment plus AI is equal to real security.
Thanks, Varun.
Yeah, I would just say that, the first job is to get this problem out of, it's not a tag problem or a HR problem, right? That message has to be loud and clear, all hands on deck. Delivery has to own it up, interviewer has to own it up. It's like, so today largely it is, it's an HR problem or TA problem. I think we need to get that notion sorted, and get the expectation right to say that the problem has gone beyond this domain, and if everybody has to come together and solve for it. So I think if you want immediately what needs to solve for, I think this is what needs to solve for that. It's an organization issue. It's not HR issue only.
Yeah. Daniel?
I would. I think the 2 points pre-hire have been very well covered. So I would recommend that they introduce the third step being a post-hire screening and verification, because if whatever good steps you do, there will be some leakage, someone who gets through the net, and therefore the sooner that you can identify those and then eliminate that, and then obviously have it known that you are an organization that will not tolerate this type of behavior and will be able to identify it, then again, the bad actors will try and focus somewhere else. So even just talking more broadly about the policies that you do in these interview security elements will naturally deter people and look for easier targets.
Great, thanks. Thank you, Varun, Daniel, and Vikas. I think this has been an incredibly powerful and practical discussion. What I love about the fact is that you as leaders are already implementing it. And today wasn't just about understanding the risk, it was about learning from all of you who are actually building the next generation of secure hiring. And before we sign off, I just wanted to give a heartfelt thank you to the entire Talview team who's working behind the scenes to make this summit possible. I think this level of coordination, preparation takes a whole lot of village, and none of this would have been possible without them. And of course, thank you to the wonderful audience for staying with us, engaging and making this summit meaningful. Thank you again, and enjoy the rest of the Interview Security Summit. Thanks, Varun. Thanks, Daniel.
Thank you. Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you all.
Thanks.
Take care.
Thanks,
Thank you,
everyone.
everyone.
Bye.
Thanks
Bye.
for having us.